Mothers, what weren't you prepared for when raising your kids? I always believed the hardest part of parenting would be protecting my children from the dangers of the world. I never imagined the real test would come from trying to hold my marriage together when our children began to grow up. From the moment Jacob was born, I devoted myself to keeping him safe. I paid attention to who he spent time with, where he went, and what he did online. My husband Luke always took a different approach, trusting that the kids would learn best by making their own decisions and sometimes even their own mistakes. For a while, our differences did not cause trouble, and I hoped we could face the teenage years as partners. As Jacob approached 16 and our daughter Janet began wanting more freedom, the cracks in our partnership grew deeper. One night, Jacob asked me if he could stay out late with friends. I told him no, explaining that I was not comfortable with it. Minutes later, I heard Luke telling him that he could stay out as long as he checked in with a text. The next weekend, the same thing happened again, and soon Jacob began going straight to his father for permission. When Janet asked for her first sleepover, I said I wanted to talk to the other parents before saying yes. Before I could reach out, Luke told Janet she could go, promising her he would talk to me. My boundaries began to feel meaningless, and the children quickly learned that their father would say yes, even when I said no. I tried to reason with Luke, but each conversation turned into an argument. He insisted that I was too strict and that the kids needed freedom, while I felt completely alone in my efforts to keep our children safe. Our nightly arguments became routine. The children started to sense the divide and took advantage of it. Jacob began coming home later and later, always claiming that his father had given him permission. One night, he returned after midnight, and I lost my temper, telling him that he was grounded. Luke immediately argued in front of both children, insisting that I was overreacting and needed to give Jacob more trust. Jacob glared at me and accused me of never trusting him, while Janet refused to speak to me at all. The house felt heavy and tense, with everyone walking on eggshells. I felt as if I had lost not only my authority, but also my connection with my children and husband. Everything reached a breaking point when Jacob wanted to go to a party where I knew there would be drinking. I said no and explained my reasons carefully, hoping Luke would support me. Instead, he waited until I left the room, then told Jacob he could go as long as he was careful, and promised not to tell me the details. When I found out, I felt completely betrayed by both of them. My attempts to protect Jacob seemed pointless, and my marriage felt colder and more distant than ever before. After that party, the tension in our home was impossible to ignore. Luke finally sat down with me late one night and admitted he had underestimated how much I worried. He told me he had thought he was helping the kids, but he could see that our constant conflict was hurting everyone. For the first time, we spoke honestly about our fears. I told him how terrified I was of something happening to our children, and he admitted he was afraid of holding them back from growing up. We realized that neither of us wanted to win the argument. We both wanted what was best for our family. We decided to approach things differently. The next time Jacob wanted to go out, we sat down with both children and set boundaries together. Jacob was allowed to attend parties if I could meet the parents first, and he had to check in throughout the night. Janet could have sleepovers, but only if we spoke to the other parents. The children seemed surprised, but soon there were fewer arguments and more trust. One night, Jacob came home and quietly told me he was glad I had made him check in, admitting it had helped him avoid a bad situation. Our family did not become perfect overnight, but Luke and I found a way to be a team again. I learned that the real challenge of parenting was not just about keeping my children safe, but about learning to trust my husband and work together as a family.